Good afternoon, everybody. How are y'all today? I figured I'd do another video today. This one here, I wanted to talk about God being the revealer of dreams. I'm going to share some things with you. First off, I need to lay the base that how that God is the revealer of dreams. In the Bible, dreams meant something. When not always. I mean, I'm not saying every time you have a dream, it's just something that has a meaning to it, because a lot of times our subconscious mind, if we're focusing on work, family, relationships, whatever, we'll have dreams kind of like that, or everybody knows what I mean on that. But occasionally you'll have a dream that definitely means something. And I had a dream like that in April of 2020, and I told everybody this dream, my kids. I told my cousin who had cancer. She was in the dream with me, so I drove to Illinois and told her about it. Her sister was there. She can remember it. I'm sure a lot of people remember me talking about this dream, but I knew it meant something. I knew it had some meaning. There was something in that dream. So first of all, because people sometimes think you're crazy or eccentric or whatever they think when you talk about stuff like this. Well, I don't really care what anybody thinks. I know that's in the Word of God. I study the Word of God, and I know what happened to me. So I'm just going to share that with you, okay? God warned a lot of people in dreams. He revealed things that was going to happen to them. Dreams were important, and it don't say these people had dreams all the time or that they was able to interpret dreams or anything. I'm going to give you some examples about this. In the Old Testament, in Genesis, Abimelech Abraham had traveled through this country. And Abimelech was like the king or the ruler, or, the ruler there. And he saw Abraham's wife, Sarah. And it says she was beautiful to look upon. She was a very fair woman and really pretty. So Abimelech saw her, and he wanted to take her to wife. And God came to, it says in Genesis 20:3, God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, "Behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman you've taken, for she's a man's wife." I got to put these glasses on, I can't see. It said, and God said unto him in a dream again, he said, "I know that you didn't know this in the integrity of your heart, that you didn't know it. So I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore I suffered you not to touch her." God said, "I know you didn't know it." He came to him in a dream twice. He said, "I know you didn't know it. That's why I allowed you not to touch her. I know you didn't know." Okay, that's one example where God came to, he wasn't a Christian, he wasn't a man of God, but he was a ruler, and God came to him and warned him about Abraham's wife. Don't mess with her. And then Jacob in the Bible, he had gone off into a foreign country. He had a dream. Well, on the way there, he had a dream that God would increase the cattle when he's in Laban's country, Laban, whatever, it was his wife's dad's name. Later became his wife. And Jacob had a dream about it, that God was showing him in the dream that he was going to increase his cattle and how he was going to do it. There's going to be these spotted cattle, and there's going to be these solid colors, and God increased Jacob and given him, increase in the cattle he had. But anyway, in Genesis 31:10, it said, "And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream," Jacob said, "and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring-streaked, speckled, and grizzled." And verse 11, "And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob, and I said, Here am I." He was warning Laban not to harm Jacob, and on down, he was telling Laban, because Laban was going to kill Jacob and take his daughters back when he was leaving. This is on down in Genesis. But he said, "And God came to Laban in the Syrian in a dream by night, and said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob, either good or bad. And it is the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your fathers spoke to me yesternight." That's what Laban told Jacob. He said, "I was going to do you harm, but the God of your fathers spoke to me last night, saying, Take heed that you don't speak to him either good or bad." And then Joseph on down, he dreamed of things that would happen in the future. And his brothers made fun of him. They hated him because of it. They call him this dreamer of dreams, made fun of him. In Genesis 37:5, it says, "And he said unto them, Hear I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed." Joseph is telling his brothers this dream which I have dreamed. And when he told them the dream, you know, what he was dreaming about, then in verse 8 it says, and they hated him more, yet the more, for his dreams and for his words. And then in verse 9, he dreamed yet another dream and told it to his brothers, and they said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, he told them. And then in verse 10, it says, his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou dreamest? And verse 11, it says, his brothers envied him, but his father observed the sayings. His brother kept it in his heart. His father kept it in his heart, His brothers ridiculed him. And they was said, and he said one to the other, they said, Behold, this dreamer comes. Okay, he had dreamed that eventually that he was going to be a leader over his brothers and his dad. And there was examples that didn't come out and say that. It was, you know, telling how these 10 sheaves are going to bow down to the one sheaf of wheat and all that kind of stuff, showing that he was going to be in charge over them later. And he was a young man. He didn't, you know, he's not trying to just be anything in front of them. He's just trying to tell them what he's dreaming, and they made fun of him over it. They ridiculed him, you know, and I figure I might get some ridicule over this too, people that don't believe. But if you don't, fine, you know, I don't care. It don't bother me what you believe. I know my God and I know the word. And he said, okay, then on down, Joseph, he eventually got, and Joseph's a very interesting story because Joseph kept his integrity no matter what he went through. You know, he was sold by his brothers. He was thrown into jail. He was thrown into prison in Egypt because a woman lied on him. He was kept down there for a long time. He went through lots and lots of things, and eventually he was like the ruler in Egypt. And we'll get into that whole story sometime, but I've got to stay on track with this dream stuff. But anyway, he was the ruler years later over his brothers, just what came to pass, what was in that dream. He saved them alive because of what God was giving him them dreams and let him know what's going to happen in the future, and saved him alive to fulfill all these things. Okay, and when he was in prison, the king's butler and the king's baker dreamed about coming things that was going to happen to them. One was good, one was bad. And Genesis 40:5 says, and they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man in his dream, in one night. They had these dreams. And they said to Joseph, we have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. Okay, see, he said the interpretations of the dreams belong to God. It's not me. It's not anybody else. These interpretations of these dreams come from God. Okay. And then Pharaoh was dreaming in Egypt about what was to come. He was troubled by his dreams and sought interpreters. He had 2 different dreams, and he sought interpreters to interpret these dreams. No one could tell him. And the butler, he had forgot all about Joseph when he got restored to his job. And Joseph told him, you're going to. He told the baker, in 3 days, they're going to take your head. You're going to die. And he told the butler, you're going to be, in 3 days, you're going to be restored to your duties. And he said, when you get back, remember me. Remember me down in the jail. And he didn't. He forgot all about him. And what exactly happened is Joseph told him, as God revealed the dream to Joseph. Okay, and so finally then the butler remembered Joseph and interpreted dreams for him and the baker. And he told the story. And so Pharaoh brought Joseph in to interpret the dream. And Joseph told him, he said, it's not me, but God who would give him the meaning of the dreams. It's not in me to do it. And then in Genesis 41, Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. He's going to tell you what's going on. And he said, Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one dream. It happened twice, the same different instances. One was about, I think it was sheaves of wheat, and the other was, or corn. There was ears of corn, and the other one was about cows. But it was the same dream. He said, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. What God is about to do, he showed to Pharaoh. And for the dream, and he said, because the dream was doubled to Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing it's established by God, and then God's going to shortly bring it to pass. It's decreed by God, and it's going to happen. And that's why you've dreamed it twice. Okay. And then on down, you know, God, and with Aaron and Miriam, he was telling them, he will speak to a prophet in dreams and visions. But to Moses, he said, I'm going to speak to prophets in dreams and visions. But to Moses, I'm going to speak to him mouth to mouth plainly. So he's saying that I'm going to speak to people, to prophets in dreams and visions, you know, and everybody wasn't just a prophet, but he's saying he's going to speak to them like that. And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision and will speak unto him in a dream. Okay? And then Gideon, I'm just giving you all these examples because I studied this thoroughly about everything about dreams when I got out of the hospital. When I went to the mental health hospital, when I got out, I thought these dreams mean something and I'm going to study this. So Gideon, God had called Gideon, a man in the Bible, to go at war. And God told him, you know, I'm going to be with you. I want you to go out and in this battle. And, you know, it tells the details of the battle and who they were fighting and all that. And Gideon was scared. He was afraid. Well, he kept on testing God. Well, God, if it's your will, then, you know, I'm going to put this cloth or something outside. And if it's full of water tomorrow, I know it's you. And then he said again, if it's dry tomorrow, then I'll know it's you. I mean, he's just doing all kinds of things because he was scared. Sometimes we're extremely scared to do what God calls us to do. If you're not, you probably wasn't called. But anyway, Gideon heard this one man telling another man how he had dreamed this dream that God was going to deliver that army into their hands. And so when he told the dream, then Gideon knew. He heard that and he knew this is confirmation. This is confirmation from God that he's going to deliver the Midianites in our hands. Okay, and then on down in Judges, it's still talking about Gideon. Judges 7 and 13, it says, when Gideon was come, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellow. That's the example I just gave you. And when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and the interpretation thereof, he worshipped and returned to Israel and said, arise, the Lord hath delivered into your hands the host of the Midian. God's going to deliver them. Let's get up and go fight. Okay, God appeared to Solomon in a dream. Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived. He wrote the book of Proverbs. The Bible says he was the wisest man that ever lived. There was no one after him, no one before him as wise as he was. Okay, in 1 Kings 3 and 5, God appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, it said. And he asked Solomon, what shall I give thee? And verse 15, later on down, it says, Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. He knew it was a dream that he had, that God had spoke to him in a dream. Okay, and then there's just so many other things, you know. Job 33 and 14 says, for God speaketh once, yea, twice, yet men perceived it not. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon man, in slumbering upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instructions. He speaks to them in a dream, in dreams and visions. Okay, and then Ecclesiastes 5 and 3 says, for a dream cometh through the multitude of business. Comes through a multitude of affairs. Okay, and then in Isaiah 29:7, they shall be as a dream of night vision. Jeremiah 23:28, the prophet that hath a dream, let him tell a dream, and he that hath my word, let him speak my word faithfully. God's saying that. A prophet that have a dream, let him tell a dream. Okay, God was showing future events and fate that would come on Nebuchadnezzar with Daniel in the book of Daniel 2 and 1. Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled. He was agitated. He was worried, and his sleep brake from him. He woke up, he couldn't sleep because he was troubled by these dreams. And in Daniel, the king said unto him, to Daniel, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. And Daniel said, tell thy servant, which is him, the dream, and we will show the interpretation. Daniel 2 and 9 says, but if you will not make known unto me the dream, therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me the interpretation of it. If you can tell me what it is, then I'll know that God gave that to you. And Daniel 2 and 19 says, then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Verse 20, Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings, and he setteth up kings. He gives wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that understand knowledge. And he's saying all these things, telling this king all this stuff. He's basically not wanting to take any. He's knowing that everything comes from God. The dreams, the wisdom, the knowledge, and it's nothing from us as a person. We are nothing without God. The Bible says, how do we have anything that he did not give to us? Everything we got comes from God. And Proverbs 2 and 6 just says this. It says, for the Lord giveth wisdom, and out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. The Lord gives wisdom, and out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. It's nothing. Everything that we have comes from God alone. We haven't acquired it on our own. It all came from God. And then So I was telling to you about these dreams. Here's something in Proverbs 2:5, and this is what Daniel did. It says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding, what you understand, how you understand things. Trust in God with all your heart, your mind. In all your ways acknowledge him. You seek him, and he shall direct thy path. He'll direct your life if you seek him. It says, be not wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord and depart from evil. We can't think anything about ourselves and think, okay, well, I'm wise and I know this and I know that and I have a lot of knowledge. Whatever you got, God gave you. He can take your mind today. He can take your mind today. And that happened in the scripture we'll talk about somewhere. Nebuchadnezzar, I think it's on in here. But he was so proud. He knew what God had done. He saw the three children, the Hebrew children, come out of the fire. He saw God do a lot of things, and he still thought, he got up on a mountain. He thought, look at what I've done. Look at what I've created. Look what I have done. And God took his mind for 7 years. So he had a mental illness for 7 years. It said his hair grew long. His nails grew long. He ate like the animals out there. And when his mind was restored unto him, then he gave God all the glory. And that's in the Bible too, all about that. Okay, and Daniel told him, he said, this is the dream and we will tell the interpretation of it. And so Daniel told the interpretation. Daniel said, in Daniel 4:5, Daniel was saying, he said, I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. This dream troubled me. It made me scared and it troubled me. And so he told the dream, Nebuchadnezzar said, I've told all these dream interpreters and all these wise men and all these, people that's supposed to know all this stuff that can interpret dreams, and they can't interpret it. Can you tell me what it is? And he come into Daniel, and Daniel told him, or he told Daniel the dream. And Nebuchadnezzar said, I know thy spirit, I know your spirit, and that the holy gods is in thee. Gods, he said, because he didn't know God. And no secret troubleth thee. Tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen in the interpretation. So he knew that God was with Daniel. He knew that he was with Daniel. So thus the visions of mine head in my bed, he was saying that I had these dreams and it troubled me. It troubled me. So Daniel told him what the dreams was and how he was going to lose his kingdom and all that. And Daniel was afraid to tell him. But anyway, it tells that whole thing, and we'll just get into that sometime. But it says that God does according to his will, and he lets us know a lot of things through dreams sometimes, or through somebody. Here's what Nebuchadnezzar said about Daniel. He said, chapter 5 of Daniel and verse 12 says, for as much as an excellent spirit, he has an excellent spirit in him, and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams, and showing of hard things, and dissolving of doubts. And he said, Daniel, whom the king named Belshazzar, now let Daniel be called, and he shall show interpretations. The king just kind of lifted him up, but Daniel always said, he gave all the glory to God. In Daniel 7:1, it says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. When he's asleep, he's having these dreams and these visions. Then he wrote the dream and told the sums of the matter. He wrote that dream down and he told about what it was. And in Daniel 7:15, he said, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. He said his cognitions much troubled him. The things he was thinking, what was going on, and my countenance changed in me, his facial thing. He was distressed about these dreams that he was having. He said, but I kept the matter in my mind. He kept it in his heart. Okay, and then we'll go over to the New Testament. This is Matthew. When Mary was pregnant with Jesus, when she was pregnant with Jesus, and she got pregnant, and Joseph didn't want to marry her. He thought she done cheated on him, that she done been with somebody else and she got pregnant, and he was planning to put her away. He was planning to get rid of her, but he didn't want to shame her and bring it all out or want her killed. So he was trying to just privily, it says, secretly put her away. But it says, while he thought on these things, Matthew 1:20 says, while Joseph thought on these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream. And And then Matthew 2:12, and Joseph, it says, being warned of God in a dream, not to go back to their own country. And in Matthew 2:13, and when they were departed, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Then on down, Matthew, the angel told him, don't go back to your home, to where you're from, because they're going to try to kill Jesus. You know, he had that decree out to kill all the Hebrew babies. So he said, don't go back there. So in Matthew 2:19, when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and told him to go back to Israel. But also in Matthew 2:22, it says that Joseph being warned of God in a dream not to go back to Galilee, he turned away. He didn't go back home. He went on to Nazareth, and that's where he stayed until, you know, he stayed in Nazareth and grew up in Nazareth. And then also in Matthew 27:19, Pilate, who was the governor, was going to have Jesus executed. They had him up there, and they was talking about what they could charge him with and what he did wrong, and, you know, all this kind of stuff, and they were wanting to kill him. And when he had sat down at the judgment seat, when Pilate had sat down and Jesus is before him, his wife sent unto him, his wife told Pilate, saying, have thou nothing to do with this just man? Don't do anything. Don't you have his blood on your hands, on this righteous man? He did nothing. He said, have nothing to do with this just man, for I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. So he had she dreamed a dream. She wasn't a Christian, you know, she was just his wife, but God came to her in a dream to go tell your husband, do not be involved in this. You know, God can speak to people in dreams. You'll know if it's him. You know, it's just this dream is just meant something. There's something to this, you know. And Acts 2:17, it said that in the last days, God's going to pour out his spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. Okay, so, you know, it's just happened all through there about. I was want to bring that all to you, how that they had all, through the Old and the New Testament, that things had happened. God had come to them in dreams. You know, and I studied every bit of this. This is a whole notebook full of stuff that I studied on that. So I'm going to share this with you about my dream. This was in April. It was April. I threw the notebook away that I had this in years ago. I wrote it down. I knew it meant something. I knew it meant something. I didn't know what, and I didn't know what was going on, but it was very vivid, very real, and I never forgot it. And when I got up, I wrote all of it down in a notebook. I wrote it all down. Everything that I dreamed, everything I could about that dream, I wrote it down. And my cousin, who had cancer, and she lived in Illinois, and she had cancer before, breast cancer, and or ovarian cancer, and it came back, and she had colon cancer. She was very sick, and she was in this dream with me. And so, you know, I went to Illinois and told her about this dream, and I told people about the dream, and it was so vivid. And I still know right now, I threw the notebook away because I had a bunch of like journals that I had written about in a very bad relationship I was in right then, and it just triggered bad memories, and so I threw the journal away. But that dream was in April of 2020. I don't remember the exact date because I threw the book away, but I knew it was April of 2020. And in this dream, I was in this great big boat, a great big boat. My kids are on there with me, my cousin, her husband, her kids. I know I've seen one or two of her kids, but I've seen her husband and her on this boat. And me and my kids were on this boat. And it was huge, like almost, I mean, didn't look like a cruise ship inside. It was kind of just a big old boat, and it had windows. And I remember looking, it was closed in, and I remember looking out this window, and it was like a beautiful blue sky. You know, it was pretty and nice, a real pretty day. No clouds. I don't remember no clouds in the sky. And I saw this, it looked like a tsunami. I don't, you know, it was like, there was this big tower, like a big tower, almost like the Eiffel Tower or something. It was shaped like that, but it was out there. I don't know, like if it was supposed to have been some kind of communication thing or what. I don't know that part, but I do remember I saw it hit that, and it just tore that all up. And then it was coming toward our boat, and it was just tearing up things. And I saw things just exploding. I mean, like you're out in the middle of this ocean. It's almost like In the Perfect Storm, if y'all ever saw that. It's like this, it was just so terrifying. I remember seeing that coming. and just debris just rolling toward us in huge big waves and debris flying everywhere. And I remember seeing out the window, and I said, it's going to hit us. It's going to hit us. It's going to hit us. And I just kept saying, I trust you, God. I trust you, God. I trust you, God. That's what I was saying. And I kept saying that. And this hit our boat. It hit our boat. And it tore us. It was just wind coming. And I don't remember seeing anybody in there at that time or anything. You're just focused on that. I mean, I just remember that. I held onto a door frame. It was like sucking my whole body, like horizontal. I guess that's called horizontal, straight across, where it sucked my body out the door. And I was barely hanging on to the door frame. I was hanging on with everything within me, and it was sucked my whole body out. And I thought, I'm going to go. I'm going to be sucked out. And then all of a sudden, after this, it's like everything stopped. Everything got calm. Our boat was still intact. We kind of just floated into this little alcove. And I remember looking up, and the skies blue again. There's little white clouds in the sky. It was like peace. It was just like peace. I had peace. And I remember my cousin was still there. And I remember I didn't see my kids in the dream, but I knew that they were okay. I thought, my kids are okay. Nothing happened to them in that dream. They were okay. So I didn't understand what any of that meant. And I went and told my cousin. I thought, it just seemed so real, and I was so motivated, and I was so just like, I felt anointed, just felt like, I've got a purpose. I've got to share this. So I went to Illinois, and later on, I know that this was really for me to let me know something, what was going on. But I went and shared it with my cousin. I said, I know in this dream, when it ended, we were together, and, we were okay. We were okay. We're going to be okay. And so I always felt like that God was going to touch her and heal her, and she's going to be okay. And I'm going to go through some storms in life, and I'm going to be okay, is what I felt like at the time. And so I told her this dream, and eventually that was in, the COVID had hit to where we had to close the restaurant down March the 20th. This is like a month after that. Okay. At that time, eventually my cousin passed away. A couple of years later, she passed away. And I thought, well, maybe that was because I know she gave her heart to God. My uncle and her sister prayed with her and talked to God with her. And she had knew about God before. She was just so pressured in the cultish religion we were in that, she couldn't wear pants. If she smoked cigarettes, she's going to hell. She couldn't cut her hair. And she was very tomboyish. And, she couldn't do all that. She just thought, I can't do this. But she had known of God, and she got her heart right with God. And she said she felt like she was ready to go, that she was at peace in her spirit. And that's what I feel like her storm being over. She was through all of that pain and that cancer coming back and treatments and this and that, and just been through so much. I think that she was delivered in that. Mine, the COVID had hit in March. And in April is when I had this dream. And at that time, we were shut down. We had to the COVID hit, but we had to shut down March 20th at the restaurant. Okay. April, it was right around April the 23rd, 24th, because I know our insurance at the restaurant was due on the 24th. That's how I remember that. And we had like $800 in the bank. And I talked to my kids. We all got together at my house, and we were talking about what are we going to do? Because the payment is due the 1st, and this insurance is due tomorrow. Our payment's $700. What are we going to do? We've got enough to pay one bill, and that's it. And so, we just thought, well, we called the owners that we were buying it from, and we told them, we can't pay this payment. If we pay, we can either pay the insurance or this payment. We don't know what to do. And if something don't happen, we're just going to have to give it back to you. We was buying it on contract for deed. We'll just have to give it up because we can't pay it. There's nothing we can do. And they told us, they said, just pay the insurance, just keep the insurance. And when this is over, we can just add on to the end of the loan. Don't worry about it. You guys just do what you got to do. All of us are going through this, so you don't worry about it. They were good to us. So that's what we did. Well, we were just at the last point. All of us was out of money. It was mine and my son and daughter-in-law, my other son. That's all the living we had. My daughter her husband had a job, but the rest of us was totally dependent on that restaurant. And so we thought, we don't know what we're going to do. It was so uncertain and so scary. And we, I applied for the unemployment and for small business loans. We hadn't heard nothing from anybody. I thought, this is it. We're not going to have groceries. We're not going to have we don't know what we're going to do. It was such a scary, tumultuous time, emotional. Eventually, we did. I looked at my bank account, and I had like $2,100 or $2,900 in there. I can't remember. And I thought, oh my God, 2,100, I think. I thought, where did this come from? I mean, I don't understand this. So I called the bank and they said that we had been approved for the unemployment. They never told us anything at all. So they had just deposited that in my account, and I told my sons, and they got theirs too. And then we got the small business loan. So that put us on our feet to be able to pay the payments up for several months until, you know, the storm passed over and we got to open again. And it also sustained us to where we was able to pay our bills and to live and to make it. So I thought, oh, okay, God, that was that storm. That was that storm that hit me, and, you know, all the uncertainty and everything that's going on. That's what happened, you know, and now I'm through this, and I'm going to make it through this. I'm going to make it through all this. It's over, and things are going to be peaceful now. Well, then after that, you know, I had some stuff. I had a horrendous relationship that I was in, and I really believed I loved this man, and he never showed me any love. He never did anything for me. He never went out of the way for me. I can't think of anything he ever bought me or did good for me besides cooking for me. He really didn't care if I was there, cheating all the time. And I thought, why am I in this? Why am I staying in this? I never would have tolerated this. What is wrong with me? I just couldn't figure it out why I was still there. And when I finally got the strength to get out of it for good, and I prayed and I sought God, and all the time, God help me, get me out of this, deliver me. And that's something you always got to have faith. I always knew, just like in that boat, I trust you, God. I trust you, God. I trust you, God. And through every one of these things, I trusted God, even though I didn't understand at the time how it's going to happen, where it's going to come from, when it's going to happen. I knew he's going to come on the scene in my life and deliver me if I sought him. And so I kept praying, God, deliver me out of this. Help me, Jesus. I don't have the strength. I don't have the willpower. I don't have the strength. I feel like I love him. It was a nightmare. My kids said, you know, they all just hated that whole time for me and that relationship I was in. And they said, you know, we expected you to kill him or him to kill you. We didn't think you'd live through it. And they said, you lost your mind. You just wasn't right. I mean, you just didn't think straight. And they just really had kind of given up. Some of them, they gave up on me. Like, there ain't no hope for you. I don't know what to tell you. You know, so anyway, it got down to where after a while of that, God delivered me out of that. He delivered me out of it. And I thought, okay, well, this is probably it. That was in the beginning of 21, I think. This other thing was maybe 19, because in 20s when I had a car wreck. I had a car wreck, and I thought, after this whole deliverance thing, I thought that was probably the storm. Well, then when things keep happening, you think, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I misinterpreted that, because I'm not getting out of this stuff. In the dream, I came out of the storm and I had some peace, and I'm not having peace, and things keep happening. And I shared my testimony of the sexual abuse and all the things that tormented my life in the last video. And so you guys heard all that, but I just kept stuff happened after happened. Well, then in September of 2020, I had a wreck. I had a car wreck. And this is that same year. And September the 3rd of 2020, I had a car wreck. I had got rear-ended, hit in this ditch. I got rear-ended about 55 miles an hour, hit this ditch. And so that was impacting. So I had a bleeding in the inner lobes of my brain. I had a concussion. They had told me you can't work. Well, my car was totaled in the wreck, so I had no vehicle. They said you can't work. You're going to have to sit at home for 30 days. You can't drive. You can't work. Don't read a book over 15 minutes. Don't look at TV over 15 minutes, you know, because it can cause you to have a seizure. And they kept me to make sure it wasn't bleeding anymore before they let me go. And so I'm sitting at home. I mean, I'm stressing to death. I had no insurance. I thought, how am I going to pay for all this stuff? How am I going to live? I don't have no vehicle. I don't have no job. I have nothing. I have nothing. What am I going to do? And I still was studying the word, and I still was praying, even though my mind, I was going to town and crying and talking about this stuff to people. I really don't even remember the first whole week of after that. It was just a nightmare. And I thought, you know, this is it. And then after that, I had to really just give my part of the ownership over to my son, my younger son, and he has it now. He's had it for, this will be 4 years this year. But I had to give the ownership over to him, because I didn't know if I'd ever even be able to work again. You know, I applied for disability. I was denied, but thank God I was, because I did get better later. But after I remember when I first went back to work and they needed me, and I tried to go back before I was supposed to. And I got up there, and I remember I've done this my whole life. I've worked in restaurants since I was 18 years old. I've owned that restaurant for 20 years. I'd worked in them forever. I've done other jobs. I worked at the juvenile office. I worked in grocery stores. I've done different things, but the restaurant was what I loved. I loved it, and I had done it all these years, and it was my life. And I raised my kids on that restaurant. I had, you know, it just took me through. It took me through, and by the grace of God. So I had to give my restaurant up to my son. And my son is good to me, mind you. I'm not saying anything about him. He's good. I love him. He's been there for me forever and through everything. But I had to give the restaurant over to him. And when I did come back to work, I remember up there trying to read the tickets just to dip plate lunches out. And I was just getting so upset, and my daughter could see it, and I couldn't focus on it. I couldn't read the ticket to even get plates fixed to get the food out. I couldn't do it. And she said, "It's okay, Mom. It's okay. I'll get it. You know, I got it." So I went onto the back, and I just became the prep, cook, and the dishwasher. I chopped onions, peeled potatoes, and washed dishes. And I got to where I was so, I felt so, you know, devastated by all that. It was such a rip in my pride and everything, because I had owned that. I had made the decisions. I had opened 2 or 3 different restaurants. Mine burnt, and I went on and opened 2 or 3 more, and I knew how to run it from nothing. I knew how to get my license, and I knew how to do all that. I knew exactly what I needed to buy and ordered, and the equipment I needed. I'd been through this so much that it was just my second nature to know all this and know what to do. And then I had got basically stripped down to just the bottom of the barrel. And, you know, I'm not meaning this down on the very rung of it, you know. And like I said, it's not my son's fault. I love him. He's good to me. I'm not blaming him. It just happened that way. And I think that I had to lose my pride and my whole confidence in my own self, without that I can do this and I can do that. And without God, I know I can do nothing. I can do nothing. But it was like if you owned a business and one of your employees that maybe is just picking up the debris or sweeping the trash up or whatever, that you go from the owner down there to doing this. And that's how I felt. You know, I was the owner. I had run that business. It had my name. I worried about my reputation, and I thought, whatever comes out of here has got to be the best I can do, because this is on me. This is my name on here. So I always loved that. I loved it. Everything I'd see, I think, I want to get this for the restaurant. My mom was that way. I'm going to buy this for the restaurant. I'm going to buy this for the restaurant. She loved it. My sisters and my brothers and my kids, and all of us worked there. All of us. My nieces have worked there. My grandkids worked there, have. So, you know, it was a whole family business that we've always had. And I was always in charge of that. And then I went down to just being the dishwasher. You know, I washed the dishes and stayed in the back and never was around people. And I got so closed off that I didn't even want to go out front to go to the bathroom. I just felt like, you know, I have no reason to dress up. I'm just washing dishes in the back. I don't even want to go out there and deal with people. I just got so isolated, and depression set in, and I had all that. But I thought, well, this is probably that storm, you know, that I had to go through. And then eventually, and a lot of times, you know, my son, I would say things like I was the boss still, and I wasn't. And then I would have to think, okay, no, I'm not in charge. And then if he made a statement like, you know, yeah, no, it really wasn't your place. I remember leaving a couple times and said, I'm going to go look for something else. I don't care what it is. I'd rather work for minimum wage somewhere than to be in this subservient position here. And, you know, it was extremely hard for me. And I'd get to looking up jobs. I think I'm just going to find me something else. I'm not doing this. If it's my son or not, I'm just not going to do it. But eventually I got past all that. I got to thinking, appreciating my job, thanking God I had a job. I'm still with my family. We love each other. We work together. So I was past all that. So I thought, okay, well, this is the end of that. That had to be the storm. That was the storm that I went through, and I made it through it. This wreck and all the stuff that went with it. It was terrible for me, but I made it through it. And then, you know, later on, I remarried, and we just had a horrible, horrible relationship. Horrible. You know, just all the cheating and the lying and just constantly cheating on me. And I got to the point, I've told that whole part before too, and I kept having these dreams about snakes. I had 2 dreams about snakes, and they were so vivid. I was just like, I was dreaming that these snakes was just crawling all over me, that they were all over me. And we were out swimming or something, me and my family and all of us, you know, and I seen these snakes just crawling out of the trees, and they was crawling all over the water, big snakes, little snakes, just snakes everywhere. And I thought, oh my God, it was terrifying, that dream. That was one of the dreams. And then another one, you know, they just start crawling around. I seen them in a dream, and they was just everywhere. And like I said, it's big snakes, little snakes, just everywhere you look, you couldn't escape them. They was all in my house. They was everywhere. And at the end of that dream, this great big snake, like an anaconda on the movies you've ever seen, anaconda, it got up right over my head, right over my face, like it was going to swallow my face. And I woke up right then. And I had looked up after the first dream, I looked up, and this was in October of 22, October 31st, I looked this up. Well, we had gotten in a domestic fight over cheating on the 28th of October, and went to jail and got a domestic assault charge and went to jail. And I've never been in jail in my life, never been in trouble in my life at all with the law, and got put in jail for domestic violence. And I had been dreaming about that snake. And so I looked it up on October the 31st of 2022. And this you know, the Bible, the snake, her spiritual meanings in dreams. And so according to one professional dream analyst, dreaming about snakes typically represents a person in the dreamer's life who is exhibiting low, dirty, toxic, or poisonous behavior. Okay? So I knew that. I knew stuff was going on behind my back. You know, things were going on behind my back. I was being cheated on. I found proof after proof after proof, and I'd take pictures and photos and kept that proof and printed it out and just had that. And, you know, so this was then, after that, I kept still trying to be in denial, thinking, okay, well, you know, maybe I just had a bad dream. Something's going, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I stayed. And then eventually it got worse and worse, and I found more proof, and I found actual proof of that, what I was suspecting was going on, or what I didn't even suspect. It really floored me. It floored me. I wasn't expecting that from him. So it just really just pulled the rug out from under my feet, because I haven't trusted people. I don't trust people. And very few people do I trust. And I talked about that too, because of all the sexual abuse and the trauma in my childhood and my life, that I have problems trusting anybody. And I had made up my mind in this marriage that I really believed he loved me. I still think he loves me. I think he's fighting demons that I cannot help him with. But as far as him loving me, I feel like that he does the best he can, the best he knows how. And so I had made up my mind, in this marriage, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to stay here. I don't care what comes or goes. You know, we're older. As far as our personality wise, our personalities were good for each other. We got along. We could work on things. We could do things. There was nothing we couldn't do. I mean, we've worked on houses. We redid restaurants. We've just done all kinds of things. Whatever we set our mind to do, we was able to do it together. And our personalities were good. But like I said, he has all these addictions and problems and demons that he's fighting that I could not deal with. But I trusted him. So when I found these things out, it's just like ripped the rug out from under me, because I thought, where do I go from here? What do I do? What do I do? And so then I got so depressed. I left, you know, I was gone for a couple months. I was hurting so bad. And I felt like it's the end of my life. I have nowhere to turn. I have nothing. I got nowhere to go. I couldn't even afford to rent a house. I was living with my son, and I thought, I don't even have the money. If I try to keep my vehicle, I have no money to rent a house, because even with us together, we did okay financially. But apart, both of us struggled. And I thought, I have no way to even rent a house. I don't know what I'm going to do. I was just so devastated. And I ended up, and I've told this story, how I was drunk. I was drinking all the time. And I took a bottle of Xanaxes to end my life. And like I said before, I never abused drugs. I never took Xanaxes to get high. I just used one a night to sleep. And I had just got the bottle refilled, and I took them all. And my son called the ambulance. He come in. I was at his house, and they took me to the hospital. And I don't remember anything for the first day or two. And he had told me, he said, you were unresponsive. Your eyes was rolled back in your head. He said, I can't go through with any more, Mom. And this is a son that stayed by my side through everything. And he said, I cannot go through this with you anymore. He said, you know, you was unresponsive. Your eyes rolled back in your head, and I just can't do this anymore. And so I was in the hospital a couple of days, and they put me in behavioral health. And, you know, those hospitals don't do anything for anybody. I mean, they didn't even give me my medicine that was prescribed to me for blood pressure and stuff like that. And they did not, I was taking a mood stabilizer, and they didn't give me that. And, you know, there was no counseling in there. There was no group sessions, no psychiatrists come talk to me. Nobody come talk to me, no counselors. They just kept me locked in there for a few days with none of my medicine and sent me home. And so when I got out of there, I was having dreams in there too, but about things that had happened, what my husband was doing to me. And I knew that, and I still remember those dreams. And I know that it was just verifying things that I knew already. But I got out, and, we ended up getting back together, and then it was just hell the whole time. And I still knew all this stuff, still finding this stuff every day and just going through hell. And so I finally was able to get out of it, even though, it was hard and painful, and I didn't think I could ever get out, but I thought, I've got to get out of this. I have to have my own sanity and find some peace and just do what God would have me to do, because I'd been studying the word forever. And I never, I knew God had some kind of purpose, but I don't know what, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just for me to learn this and know this for myself and to study the word. But, I was talking to a little girl at the restaurant the other day, and I call her a little girl. She's in her late 30s, but her and I was discussing all this stuff and about dreams and how they mean things and stuff. And she said, she said, all that debris that was coming toward you, when the tsunami, whatever, that great big thing in the ocean was bubbling up and coming toward me, and it was throwing debris everywhere. She said the debris could have been the things that was happening before the main thing, because I know when I was sucked out that door, I feel like that was my life, where my life was almost gone, that I was barely hanging onto that door frame, that I was sucked out. And I feel like that was where I came close to death. And all these rolling things that was coming toward me and throwing all this debris was the things that was happening up to that point when I like to died and lost my life. And this has been the worst last 4 or 5 years that I've ever lived, and it has continually gotten worse and continually more painful, and more things have happened. So, I believe that. I think God gave me that dream. And when I was in that dream, I kept saying, I trust you, God. I trust you, God. I trust you, God. And I always have, no matter what I went through. I thought, He's here. He's going to help me. I don't know when it's going to be. And you look back on the things I've shared with you. That was in 2020 when I had the dream. And I've been through hell since then. But I'm going to show you, like, this card right here. I put that up on my refrigerator. And it says, I'll put this on Thursday, March 2nd of 2023. 1 John 4:18 says, perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. It's saying that fear, when you fear and you're afraid, it has torment. It torments you. It tears you up, being afraid and having fear. And Psalms 56:3, and I quoted this when I memorized this, when it said, what time I am afraid, I will trust in thee. What time I'm afraid, when I'm having anxiety, and when I'm having fear, and when I'm having these sick feelings, and when I don't know what to do, when I'm having all this, I will trust in thee. I will trust in thee. And it says, Psalm 61:8 said, trust in him at all times, trust in him. And Psalms 56:11, it says, in God have I put my trust. I will not be afraid what man can do unto me. In God have I put my trust. And I'm telling you right now, trusting in God is what got me through every bit of that. And in that dream, I was saying, I trust you, God. I trust you, God. I trust you, God. And every time that I've went through things like this, all this turmoil, I would say, I trust you, God. I trust you, God. I trust you, God. I would lay in the bed and say that over and over and over again. And I would have to say, calm myself down, think you're okay. You're okay. You're safe. When these feelings start coming up and all this trauma started coming up and all these uncomfortable feelings, I would lay there and talk to myself and say, you're okay. It's okay. You're safe now. You're safe. I'd have to tell myself that, but I always trusted that God was going to bring me through that. And I just wanted to share that stuff with you guys about the dreams, interpretation of dreams. And you know what happens? What happens in dreams, and it's, and I want to let you guys know, and I have another thing about that I'll talk to another time, about trusting in God. And that's what gets us through these things. So I always talk about trust God, have faith in God, trust God. And if you don't know, and you've never studied the word, and you don't know what it says in there all the time about trusting him, and how people have give testimonies, how I was in the miry clay and he took me out of that miry clay that was sucking me down and pulled me up and put me on a rock. And he saved my life. He saved my life. And Hebrews 11:6 says, but without faith, it's impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God, he that comes to God must believe. You have to have faith or you can't please him. Must believe that he is God, and that he is a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. If you seek him with all your might, persistent, you earnestly seek him, then it says that he is a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. He's there. He's going to bring you out. He's going to hold you up. He loves you. He's going to help you. And there's just scriptures all through there that talks about that, and how that God, you know, how we can trust him, have trust and faith in him. You know, it's just a wonderful thing to know that you can trust God. He's my counselor. I was talked about that earlier at the hospital, and the doctor I was seeing that gave me the mood stabilizer, she was a nurse practitioner. And, I would call them. I called them after the hospital incident. I called their office after, when I got date raped the last time. I called and I was so distraught and just didn't know what to do. And you know what they said? Well, if you have any more problems, give us a call back. That's what they said. And there's a couple times in my life that I went into counseling. The first time, the counselor had a degree in English, and they get you to go and tell you all these personal things and all this trauma out of your life, and they're sitting there making notes. And it almost reminds me, if anybody's seen the movie Patch Adams, how that he's sitting there talking to this psychiatrist that's supposed to be helping him. And Patch Adams, based on a true story, Robin Williams played in it, about a doctor, but he was sitting there, he was suicidal, he was in the mental hospital, and this doctor was counseling with him and writing all this stuff down about his life. And it shows where Patch Adams just said something kind of off the wall, off-colored, off the wall. Doctor never even noticed it. Just right. It means he wasn't listening to anything he said. And, I'm sure there are good counselors out there, and I'm not telling anybody you should not go see a counselor if you feel like you need that. And if you find a good one that can relate to you and talk to you about trauma, because I watch videos, I study things, I always have. I study the Bible. I study about childhood trauma and children of alcoholics and, betrayal trauma when I've been through all this stuff, and people that's narcissistic behavior. And I don't think everybody's a narcissist. I think there are a lot of broken people. There are narcissists, but I think there's a lot of broken people, and they call everything narcissist. But I study all this stuff. I study these things and I listen to preaching and scriptures about it. I listen to psychiatrists and social workers and, therapists about it. So I study and I research things. So I'm not telling anybody not to go see a therapist, because if it's a good one, I think it can definitely help you. But the times that I tried to go see one, I had the other one, like I said, that was young. She was educated, but she had no clue about my life experiences or how to help me. And so, I've looked to God. And like I said, please don't take it that I'm telling you not to go see counselor or seek help from the mental health community. I am not saying that. Don't misquote me on saying that. I'm just saying, for my experience in my life, God has been there for me. I trust him, and I'm going to share this scripture with you, and I'll get off here. But it says Isaiah 9:6. He's talking about, he's predicting, it's a prophecy about Jesus coming. It says, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. And counselor in that is to advise, to deliberate, or resolve, to offer suggestions about the best course of action for someone, to recommend something, to inform someone about a fact or situation, to give someone a recommendation about what should be done. That's what he does for me. The word does that for me. God, studying his word, the things that I search and the things that I seek, because I'm asking God for help and I'm seeking him for help and I want his help. He's my counselor. I've never had anybody here that's done anything for me in the counseling department. Like I said, you feel like that, this is a job. They're writing this stuff down. They're just taking notes because this is their protocol. This is what they're supposed to do. They have these pre-printed out forms that they got to go through and ask you all these questions, and they could care less. They're collecting a paycheck. It ain't nothing to them. They see this every day. They see all kind of stuff. They hear all kind of stuff. And I'm sorry if I sound very pessimistic about it, but that's how I feel about it personally. Like I said, I believe that I've talked to people and known of people that went to counseling and got therapy and got help. But even me and my ex-husband were seeking help. We were trying. I was calling everywhere. St. Louis, Jonesboro, Memphis, all the places closest around us. We were even going to drive to St. Louis to try to get some counseling on the things that we were struggling with that was destroying our marriage. And they had waiting lists for a year to be able to get into, thought, well, a year we'll be divorced for sure. But we tried to seek counseling. It's just, I don't think it just ain't there for me. I just, like I said, if you can find a counselor, if you have the money, because most of it's about money. If you're poor, they don't care what happens to you. You can be out here in the street, you can die in prison or the mental hospital or out here on the street of drug overdoses. And that's what happens. These poor people, don't get me on a roll here about don't have money. They could care less if you live or die. And that's how society is. Everything, these churches, these religious leaders, these counseling places, therapeutic places, they'll get online and tell you about, oh, they can give you this therapy. They're trained in this, they're trained in that. They can help you. They can help your family, put your life back on track. But then it don't go on and tell you about how much this costs. I mean, even to have any kind of religious people trying to talk to you about something, well, you got to pay such and such to get this packet or get this book. That is so bad. That is so wrong. I mean, God sees all that stuff. So to me, my help come from God. My help comes from Lord. It says, he's in Psalms, it says, put not your trust in the Son of Man, and where there is no help in the Son of Man, in men. Because God, happy is he that has the God of Jacob for his trust. You know, God is my trust. He is my help. He is, I'll tell you this one scripture and I'll get off here, but Psalms 121, 1 and 2 says, I will look to the hills, and I've said this forever, I will look to the hills from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My help comes from him. It don't come from no man. It don't come from no counselor. It don't come from no preacher. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. That's where my help comes from. That's where your help can come from. And like I said, I'm not telling you not to seek a counselor, not to seek a pastor, a religious leader, a friend, somebody that you know you can trust. The Bible says there's safety in the multitude of counselors. If you can get some help and you can get some counseling, and you know, you got, like with me, when I look up these things and I study all this stuff and I see that my feelings are validated, what I'm feeling is validated, and this is real for me, and other people have experienced that, that helps me. That gives me therapy. So there is, I think we definitely need some group therapy, group sessions, like for the groups for sexual abuse survivors, that we can share our stories with each other and know that, you know, we're not the only ones, and we're not the only ones that's happened to, and it was not our fault, and just all these kind of things. Anyway, I'm going to get off here, but I was just going to tell you, if you can find, sometimes God will lead you to a therapist or a counselor or a medical doctor or some medication you might need, that you have a brain. If we can have physical ailments that we need medicine for, how can we say that we can't have an imbalance in our brain chemistry somewhere that is physical too, that we might need some help for? So a lot of times God will lead you to things like that. With the mood stabilizer, I got that when I had the car wreck, and they found the different symptoms of all the mood disorder I'd had for all these years with all the trauma. And a lot of these mood disorders comes from trauma that you've experienced. A lot of mental health illnesses that we have is really not what was born in us. It's things that happened to us that's caused these mental illnesses, you know. So anyway, God bless you. I love you. I hope I said something to help you or encourage you. But the main thing I always want to point out in every one of these Bible studies or every one of these videos or anything, these life studies that I'm talking to you about, anything that I talk to you about, is look to God. The Bible says, look to God, the author and the finisher of our faith. He is where our hope is. He's where our help is. He's where our knowledge is. He's our safety, our security. He's everything to us. He's our deliverer. He will help you, and he loves you. God loves you. And I hope and pray to God that these videos reach out to somebody and encourages you to hang on to God. I don't care what you're going through. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care. It may not happen today. It may not happen tomorrow. Mine was several months, a few years to get me where I'm at today. I have that peace. I've settled into that alcove with the beautiful blue sky and the fluffy clouds and the flowers around and the peace of God in my life. And God can give that to you. You just hang on to him. You trust him. You trust his word, and God will see you through. God bless you.